And I want to take just a few minutes to talk to you about one of the most important subjects that any ministry volunteer can ever take a look at. How are you maximum as a leader when you're not the number one position? Let me talk from 4 exciting decades in full-time ministry about some of the leadership mistakes that I see people who are volunteers, who are not the number one position, often make. First, I think sometimes it's easy for those great volunteers to check out because they inwardly believe that if they're not on top, they can't really make a huge difference. And gosh, that's wrong. Secondly, I think sometimes when you're an amazing volunteer but not the person being the big leader on stage, it's easy to become a little apathetic, a little complacent, because we say to ourselves, if I ever get more power, if I ever get more authority, if I ever get a title that allows me to really do something, then I'll work harder. Then I'll really invest myself in this ministry. You know, if I was the main leader of the youth department or the music department, but I'm not. I'm just a volunteer. Nobody knows much about me. And so it's easy to get a little complacent and a little lazy. And I think sometimes when you're not the person holding the mic, we think inwardly, if I were on top, everybody would follow. And you know what? That's just not true. Because if nobody's following you now, even if it's just 1 or 2 other people, then a title would only change things temporarily. Leadership is influence, not a title. And sometimes it's easy, if you're not holding the mic, to focus on all the weaknesses, all the legitimate shortcomings, because I'm sure there are a boatload of them, of the primary leader, rather than letting your focus be on being a true armor bearer. And I can just hear some of you saying, gosh, if you knew my leader, you'd know he or she's lazy, incompetent, not grateful, not worthy of respect. And you know what? Maybe for some of you listening, that is true. But remember, as you're an armor bearer, like Jonathan was to David, that you're doing that not just for the person, but you do that as unto the Lord. And then too, I think people who kind of are in that next position of leadership or a volunteer believe that if the leadership at the top is poor, they themselves cannot excel. Now, truth is, we all know that leadership can put a lid eventually on you, but it's the Lord's job when that moment comes to take care of it. Understand that our greatest limitation will never be the leader above us, but rather the spirit and heart within us. Do you hear that? Your greatest limitation will never be the leader above us, but the spirit and the heart and your own choices within you.